Happy Halloween. Hello? It's not Halloween? Shit. At this point, it's kind of become a tradition that my Halloween videos are always late, and by always, I mean like twice. So, to spare myself any further embarrassment, Halloween is now in November. Deal with it. Even though it's not technically Halloween, this video will be delving into some sinister and unsettling territories, so prepare yourself for... For better context, if you haven't already, I would suggest checking out my Revolution 9 video where I first talked about the history of ambient music and sound collages. Then, return to this video. Go ahead, I'll wait. Link in the description. Alright, fine. Be that way. And away we go. John Lennon began working on What's the New Mary Jane back in 1968 during the making of the White Album. This was around the same time as Revolution 9, another one of the Beatles' most experimental pieces. But unlike Revolution 9, Mary Jane and her Yeti never actually made it onto the album. There were earlier takes on the Escher demos recorded at George Harrison's apartment, which featured George and John on vocals and John on guitar. For the later takes, the vocals were pitched down as the creative direction turned it into more of a demented nursery rhyme. The Escher demo just sounds like a 2-minute 43-second White Album era story similar to Cry Baby Cry or Bungalow Bill, with its wacky childish lyrics and inventive characters. But the 3 longer versions recorded in the studio feature more dissonance, creepy creaking noises, and a long ambient section in the middle akin to John's experimentation with Revolution 9. The song was supposedly meant to be put in the track listing between Glass Onion and Happiness is a Warm Gun, but was removed due to the album's almost 2-hour runtime. After the White Album, John wanted to release the track as a single on the B-side of You Know My Name, Look Up My Number, which unfortunately didn't end up working out.
My disappointment is immeasurable, and my day is ruined.
So the track went unpublished until 1996, when the 6-minute 12-second version was published in the Anthology 3, where despite being somewhat popular among hardcore Beatles fans, it continued to stay mostly under the radar. On first listen, What's the New Mary Jane sounds like another one of John's nonsensical songs like I'm the Walrus or Hey Bulldog. But after closer inspection, yeah, it's basically just nonsense. Mary Jane is probably a reference to marijuana, which makes sense given the strange, trippy production, but besides that, it seems like the lyrics to the song were just John messing around, something the Beatles were no strangers to in 1968. The fact that he changed the line, he cooking such groovy spaghetti on the Escher demo to he groovy such cookie spaghetti on the final cut, gives a hint as to the intended playfulness of the track. In the first recording, you can often hear John and the other members cracking jokes and making each other laugh during the song. Some people believe that it was inspired by Syd Barrett of Pink Floyd, who was also recording at Abbey Road Studios during that time. But other sources say that while Paul was a fan of the band, John didn't really show much interest, which makes it unlikely. Because John died before its release, the true source of inspiration isn't too clear, though it's evident that it wasn't meant to be listened to in too much depth. The song begins with piano, guitar, and some light tambourine. The first verse is relatively tame, and it sounds like a standard Lennon nursery rhyme.
She looks as an African queen. She's eating 12 chapatis and cream.
Next, we get our first taste of the main chorus.
What a shame Mary Jane had made a party. What a shame Mary Jane, what a shame Mary Jane had made at the party.
In the chorus, we get a sudden G7, which makes the song feel dissonant, with the addition of ambient noises in the background that almost sound like a rusty swing set or seesaw being distorted with reverb. The whole chorus feels very unsettling, like something out of a horror movie. In the verses that follow, an echo is included on John's vocals, which only adds to the unsettling feeling. Slowly, more and more noises are introduced, and as John's vocals fade out, the experimental ambient section begins around the 2-minute 30-second mark. Some of the noises included are bells chiming, high-pitched wailing, which I assume is Yoko, laughing, what I believe is some reverse piano, and some other indecipherable noises. But unlike Revolution 9, this ambient section feels somewhat peaceful in a strange way. It's hypnotic, with certain sections that kind of remind me of whale song, and the reverb and other effects used on Yoko's wailing make it sound almost hauntingly beautiful, which is not a feeling that Yoko's voice usually leaves me with. Even though there are some serene moments, you can't help but sense that something wrong is lurking under the surface, like the uneasy feeling you get when you're looking into a dark pit so deep you can't quite see the bottom. Around the 5-minute 20-second mark, the chorus fades back in but leaves as quickly as it came, followed by a final experimental bit, and finally John's voice is heard saying,
Let's hear it. Before we get taken away.
If Revolution 9 is what hell sounds like, then the ambient section of What's the New Mary Jane is what the inside of a black hole must sound like. It's as if the song got thrown on the ground and shattered into a million pieces that are all drifting around you in an empty vacuum, shifting in and out of earshot. However, Mary Jane is experimental and off-putting in a fun way, but it nowhere near reaches the chaoticness and ingenuity of Revolution 9. However, from a songwriting standpoint, Mary Jane does feel a lot more like a Beatles song. While Revolution 9 kind of stuck out like a sore thumb, I think Mary Jane would have sat well among the other songs on the White Album. It's unfortunate that this song doesn't get talked about because it has the weird nonsensical lyrics and fun characters and an experimental section that most highly regarded Beatles tracks have. But I think it's just a little too unsettling to have been a hit. While A Day in the Life has its unsettling moments, it's still enjoyable pop music that appeals to a larger listening audience. What's the New Mary Jane is a similar concept, but most of the fun of it goes out the window after the first 30 seconds. Not crazy enough to be as controversial as Revolution 9, but not marketable enough to be an experimental classic like Strawberry Fields, What's the New Mary Jane sits on that line between hit and flop that has resulted in it being continually overlooked by even some of the most diehard fans. I would love to hear in the comments what you guys think of this song. Is it your favorite Beatles song, your least favorite? Is this your first time hearing about it? Let me know in the comments and I'll see you next time. Subscribe.